Okay, so I'm going to have a go at the next exercise in top interview questions on Leetcode. It's in the array section and it's called ValidSudoku. Okay, so determine if a 9x9 Sudoku board is valid. Only the filled cells need to be validated according to the following rules. Each row must contain the digits 1 to 9 without repetition. Each column must contain the digits 1 to 9 without repetition. And each 9 3x3 sub-box of the grid must contain the digits 1 to 9 without repetition. A Sudoku board could be valid but not necessarily solvable, and only the filled cells need to be validated according to the mentioned rules. Okay, so in this example, this one output true, presumably because no numbers appear twice in the rows, columns or 9x9 grids. And the second one has a 5 in the top left corner, which has been modified to an 8, and there's 2 8s in the top left box. Okay, so example 2 has an 8 there and an 8 there, so that 5 clashes, or the 8 at that position clashes with the 8 there. Okay, constraints. The board length is 9 for each row in the board. The length, in other words the board height, is 9, and each digit on the board is either 1 to 9 or a full stop symbol for an empty square. Okay, so I think this is going to be a sort of compound for loop thing, but let's just have a look at how we want to do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a method that will take 9 digits and check for repeats, and then I can loop through the rows and put each row into the method, and if it finds a repeat the method will return true, and if we return true we'll return false from the main method because we found a repeat. And then so it's a matter of building up 9 length arrays to put into this method. So we'll do it with the rows, then we'll do it with the columns, and then we'll do it with the individual boxes. I think we'll have for loops inside for loops all over the place, especially with the 3x3 box, because what I'm going to have to do is loop. So first to build the row, I'll loop through each row. So my first loop will look at each row, and then it will build the array from each digit in the column for each row. The next loop I'm going to have to, well, I can put the same code but just reverse the X and the Y to get the columns, and then to do each box I'm going to have to loop in 3s up, and then in an inner loop in 1s up, and I need to do that on the X and Y axis. So I'll just do it and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so that's the example put in that they gave us, and this should result in a valid Sudoku. But this one is a good example of breaking down the problem really, because the first thing I'm going to do is make a method that will determine if one set of 9 has repeated digits. So I'm going to say private because it's only needed in this class, private boolean, and I'll call it is valid set. and that is going to have a char array. It's going to be 9 each time, and I'll call that set. And then I'm going to loop through the set, and if I see a digit, I'm going to remember it in a hash set, and if I see the digit again, I'm immediately going to return false because it's not valid. But if I see the full stop, I'm going to do nothing with that because that's just an empty square. So for char c in set, if c, I think for full stop I could just compare it with the equals operator. For a character with a string, I'd have to do dot equals. So if c equals that, do nothing else. So now I'm going to say a set of characters seen before. Say if seen before contains c, return false, and if not seen before, add c. So what I'm saying there is, if it's a empty square, do nothing. Otherwise, if we've seen it before, return false and add it to our seen before list. So see it now sort of thing. Go through the loop. If we get all the way to the end and we haven't returned false, we'll return true. It's valid set. Now all I need to do is make my sets. So I need to make it with rows, columns and 3x3 boxes. So for int x equals 0, x is less than board length x plus plus. Now board at x is an array for each row, so I can say if not is valid board at x, return false. Let me just check I've got this the way around. So if it's a valid set, that will return true. If it's not a valid set, we return false. The whole thing is not valid. Okay, so that's the rows taken care of quite easily. I thought I was going to get X and Y and swap them over, but it's slightly different. Next, I'm going to have to put each value in X and then for each value in Y. We know it's a square, but just in case, I'm saying this column, the length of this column, y plus plus. So I'm now going to loop down the column at the start. I'm going to make character array column equals new character array 9 in length. Again, just in case we're looking at this column. And I'm going to say column at y equals board at x, y. So this, I'm building the array from each value in the column. So for column 0, I'm building the array with these values going down, and then that's in the y loop. In the x loop, I'm looping through the columns. And then I could do the same again. Once I've built my column, if it's not a valid set, then return false. So I'm just going to put a comment in here now. This is rows, this is columns, and the third one, I'll call it boxes. Now boxes, so I need to loop x. This is kind of, so this first loop is going to go I'm going to step 3 at a time, so I'm going to make a loop in a loop. The outer loop is going to step through the positions of the boxes in the x-axis, and the outer loop is going to step through the positions of the boxes in the y-axis. Then I'm going to make a loop inside that. So once I've got, say I'm here on x and here on y, there I am, I'm going to make a 3x3 loop inside a loop. So the x loop here, the inner x loop, is going to loop through the 3 boxes, and the inner y loop is going to loop through the 3 y boxes. So it's not very often I have four loops, as in FOUR, 4 loops, all nested inside each other, but I think I'm going to here. So I'm going to loop x, and I'm going to call this outer x equals 0. Outer x is less than board length. Outer x plus equals 3. So add 3 on each time. And within that, I'm going to do an outer y. Outer y is less than border outer x length. This is just, instead of just doing board.length, just in case later we want to give it a board which isn't square, I am making sure I say that outer y is working up to the length of the column that we're looking at. And outer y plus equals 3. Now I want 4 inner x to equal 0. Inner x is less than 3, so it'd be 0, 1, 2. And inner x plus 1 at a time, and then inside that inner y doing a similar thing. And to build my set, once I've got the outer values, I then want to build a set of 9. So I'm going to make char column. I'm just going to say board length this time, so I would have to come back and edit it if the board wasn't square. But char column, it's got 9 characters in, so, and I'm going to keep an eye on the index of this equals 0. So column at index, which we will then increment. So the increment symbol being at the end of the index means it will happen after the operation. If I put it at the front, like there, it would happen before. I want it to happen after. So column at I equals board column at index equals board inner x plus outer x and inner y plus outer y. Once I've done my inner loops, I've got my, it's not a column, it's a box, so I'm going to call it box. I've got my box, and if the box is not a valid set, I'm going to return false. So that's quite a tough one really, especially if you're not used to for loops. So let's see if this does the job. So let's I'm going to give it this as a test. So let's run, and I just need to save the result. So I want this to say true because it's a valid Sudoku. It says false. Okay, so I'm going to have to debug it. Let's see what went wrong. Right, so I've actually put in the wrong solution here. I thought I put in the one that would return true, but I've put in the one with the 2 8s in the first box, so this is supposed to fail, so it is working. I should have put the one with 5 in the box there, but what I did discover whilst debugging is that this columns one is actually doing the rows, it's doing the same job as that, so I just need to swap X and Y over there. Now I'll test it and see if it works. So this should return true. Now if I put a 5 here, it doesn't clash with any columns, it doesn't clash in its box, but it clashes in the row. So let's just debug through and make sure that it catches. I'll check the 3 catch points and I'll make sure it catches in the row. Okay, so it's returning false for the row and the answer is false, so that's right. I'm going to take that 5 out and I'm going to put a 5 down here. It doesn't clash in the box, it doesn't clash, or it does clash in the row. I need to do it there. Doesn't clash in the box, it doesn't clash in the row, it clashes in the column. So I'll debug again, and there we've caught it out in the column, so that's right. And finally I'll make one that clashes in the box, so I'll just do it in this box down here. I put a 6 there, it clashes in the box, not in the row or the column. I debug again, and this time we've got an invalid box. So I've debugged that to my satisfaction. I think it's working okay, and I'm going to submit that and see how it does. So I think it's the first time on Leetcode that I've actually put in another method, but let's just run the code. It's finished, it's got the right answer, I'll submit it, and it's accepted. Okay, there are faster methods. I suppose the faster methods may not have built the array in the first place, but just done the comparison that I was doing in the separate method in the loop. but then it would have meant repeating the code. But there are also people that have used much less memory, so maybe that's what they did, but I don't know. But I'm happy with my solution. So that's my solution to Leetcode's Valid Sudoku. Thanks for watching.